Headlines are screaming that the Supreme Court just dropped an emergency ruling that ends unfair carry restrictions nationwide. If you believe that headline without checking the facts, your next stop at a gas station, store, or restaurant could put you on the wrong side of the law. Pause. Quick question before we continue. Are you subscribed yet? Because this kind of story is exactly how good people get confused, make one bad move, and then face charges they never saw coming. If you want clear updates without the hype, hit that subscribe button right now. Here's what just happened, and this is the part that shocked me. A lot of people online are acting like the Supreme Court already flipped a giant switch and wiped out carry restrictions across all 50 states overnight. That is not what happened. Not even close. What we actually have right now is a mix of three things. First, a very important older Supreme Court ruling from 2022. Second, a new major carry case out of Hawaii that the court heard this year. Third, a wave of social media videos turning "this could happen soon" into "it already happened." And that difference matters a lot. Let me break this down for you in plain English. The big ruling most people are talking about is Bruen. That case struck down New York's old rule that forced people to show a special reason to carry a handgun in public. In other words, New York could not say, "regular self-defense, IS, not enough. You need some rare danger." The Supreme Court said law-abiding people with normal self-defense needs still have a right to carry in public. That was a major win, huge win. But here's what most people get wrong. Bruen did not create nationwide permitless carry. It did not erase every carry permit law. It did not make every state restriction illegal. In fact, the court specifically said many shall-issue permit systems can still exist. That means states can still require things like background checks, fingerprints training, fees, and permits, as long as they are using clear rules instead of forcing you to beg for special favor. That is why this matters to you. If someone tells you the Supreme Court ended permits nationwide, and you believe them, you could carry where your state still says no. You could skip renewing your permit. You could assume your home state rules follow you everywhere. And that is exactly how otherwise legal gun owners walk straight into trouble. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The newest case people are using for those viral headlines comes out of Hawaii. The issue is not all permits are gone. The issue is whether Hawaii can make private property open to the public off limits by default unless the owner gives express permission. Think about that for a second. Most of the places you go every day are private property open to the public. Gas stations, grocery stores, shopping centers, small businesses. If the rule is no carry unless the owner clearly says yes, that can swallow a huge part of your real-world carry right. And that is why gun owners are watching this case so closely. Because on paper you might have a permit, but in real life, if almost every normal stop is treated like a forbidden zone, unless the owner speaks up first, your right gets smaller and smaller. That is the trick. Rights do not always get crushed by one giant ban. Sometimes they get boxed in by 100 little rules until they barely work. So when you hear the Supreme Court is ending unfair carry restrictions nationwide, the truth is more narrow and more serious. The court has not handed down some magic emergency order that wipes the map clean. The real fight is over how far states can go in making public carry useless through location bans, permission rules, and sensitive place expansions. That fight is still alive, and it could affect millions of gun owners. Pause. If you're finding this helpful, imagine what you'll learn in my next video about the exact words you should and should not say when police ask if you're armed. Subscribe now so you don't miss it, because that one conversation can change everything in seconds. Now let's talk about why this Hawaii case has people fired up. The Supreme Court heard arguments in it this year, and several justices seemed skeptical of Hawaii's rule. That got a lot of attention. And honestly, I understand why. When the justices sound skeptical, people get excited. But here's the crazy part. Skeptical questions at oral argument are not the same thing as a final ruling. They are clues, not the finish line. So what is the actual issue? Hawaii says if you have a carry permit, you still cannot bring your handgun onto private property open to the public unless the owner gives clear permission. The challengers say that flips the normal rule upside down. They argue that if a business owner wants to ban guns, the owner can do that. But the state should not get to assume every silent owner means no. That is the heart of the fight. Why should you care if you do not live in Hawaii? Because other states have used similar ideas. New York, California, Maryland, and New Jersey have all been part of this same wider battle over post-Bruen carry restrictions. So if the Supreme Court says Hawaii went too far, that logic could hit similar laws in other places too. That does not mean every restriction dies overnight, but it could force states to rewrite major parts of their carry laws. But wait, there's something even more important. Even if the court rules for the challengers, that still would not mean carry anywhere, no permit, no rules, all restrictions gone. That is fantasy. States would still fight over training, permits, sensitive places, signs, parking lots, public transit, bars, schools, government buildings, and a long list of other issues. One ruling can open a door. It usually does not end the whole war. Here's a hypothetical example to explain this. Imagine the court says Hawaii cannot treat all private property open to the public as off limits by default. Sounds great, right? But then a state responds by passing new sign requirements, new buffer zones, new local penalties, or broader lists of so-called sensitive places. So you win one point, and the state comes back with 3 new rules. That is how this area of law works. It moves fast, and it changes shape. Now, quick legal note. This is educational information, not legal advice. Always consult an attorney for your specific situation. Let me explain why that disclaimer matters so much. Gun law is not like normal advice online. If you mess up a recipe, dinner tastes bad. If you mess up carry law, you could lose your gun rights, your money, your freedom, or all 3. And what makes it worse is that many gun owners think, I'm a good guy, I passed the background check, I'm not the person they're after. But the law does not care what your intentions were if you carried into the wrong place under the wrong rule on the wrong day. Have you ever wondered why so many people feel lost after major gun cases? Here's why. Most people think a Supreme Court case works like a light switch, off yesterday, on today. But the truth is messier. A Supreme Court decision sets a rule, then lower courts argue about it. States rewrite laws, more lawsuits get filed. Judges disagree, some restrictions get blocked, others stay in place for a while. That means you can hear, big win at the Supreme Court, and still have to follow a bunch of state rules the next morning. This is the part nobody's talking about enough. The danger is not only anti-gun states. The danger is confusion. Confusion is what gets regular people charged. Confusion is what creates test cases. Confusion is what turns a lawful carrier into the person standing in front of a judge saying, but I thought YouTube said it was okay. Please do not be that person. Pause. Hey, 73% of people watching this kind of content are not subscribed. Don't be part of that group. Join the gun owners who want facts first, hype second, and updates before the headlines get twisted. Click subscribe and stay ahead of the next ruling. Let's bring this down to street level because this is where your life actually happens. Imagine you're driving across town. You have your permit, your handgun is lawfully holstered. You stop for gas, then you run into a store for a drink, then you meet a friend at a restaurant, then you pick up medicine. Simple day, right? But depending on your state, that simple day can cross private property rules, posted sign laws, vehicle storage laws, duty to inform laws, and sensitive place rules before lunch. Most people think the big legal risk is during some dramatic self-defense event. Sometimes it is. But a lot of legal trouble starts with something much smaller. A traffic stop, a bad sign on a front door, a posted rule you did not notice, a state line you crossed without checking reciprocity, a business that counts as private property open to the public, a parking lot rule, a school zone issue. That is why accurate information matters more than viral titles. Here's what most people get wrong about private property rules. They think silence means permission. In some states, that may mostly be true unless a place posts a sign or tells you to leave. In other states, silence can still create risk depending on the law being challenged or how local courts read it. That is why the Hawaii case matters. It goes right at that question. Who decides the default rule, the property owner through clear action, or the state through a blanket ban? Now, this is where it gets even more important for you. If the Supreme Court eventually rules against Hawaii, a lot of people will celebrate and assume the fight is over. Don't make that mistake. States that lose big gun cases often come back with new wording, narrower restrictions, or different legal theories. We saw that pattern after Bruen. Some lawmakers did not say, okay, we lost. They said, fine, then we'll regulate the places instead of the permit. Same battle, new wrapping. So what should you do right now today before any new ruling drops? First, know your own state law code, not your buddy's version, not a meme, not a comment section, the actual law. Second, if you travel, check every state on your route, not just your destination. Third, learn private property rules in your state. Does a sign carry legal force? Does the owner have to ask you to leave first? Are certain places banned no matter what? Fourth, keep your permit current if your state requires one. Do not assume a future court win protects you today. Fifth, if you are unsure, talk to a real attorney in your state who handles firearms law. Let me give you one more relatable scenario. Imagine you are in a traffic stop and the officer asks, do you have any weapons in the car? Your answer, your tone, your state's duty to inform rule, and whether you are parked on prohibited property can all matter at once. That is why I always say the legal side of carry is almost as important as the gear side. The best holster in the world cannot save you from bad legal info. And here is one more warning. Do not confuse constitutional with safe to test. You may believe a law is wrong. You may even be right. But until a court blocks it, the state may still enforce it. That means you can be the one paying the price while the lawsuit plays out. That is a brutal lesson, and too many people learn it the hard way. Pause. Laws change fast. Court decisions move faster. And the people who wait for the news after the fact are usually the ones already exposed. Subscribe now, because in the next video, I'm going to show you the exact carry law checklist you should review before your next trip, your next class, or your next stop at a business that posts gun signs. So here's the bottom line. No, the Supreme Court has not already issued some sweeping emergency ruling that ended unfair carry restrictions nationwide overnight. Yes, the court is dealing with major carry issues that could reshape how states restrict armed citizens, especially in places like private property open to the public. And yes, the next ruling could matter a lot, but until it actually comes down, the law you must follow is the law in force right now, not the law people on the internet wish existed. If you remember one thing from this video, remember this. Hope is not a carry policy. A viral headline is not a legal defense. And being pro-Second Amendment does not protect you from a prosecutor if you walked into the wrong place under the wrong rule. If this channel helps you protect your rights, your record, and your freedom, do me a favor and subscribe right now. Share this with the one friend who always says, "I'm sure it's legal," without checking first. That one friend needs this video more than anybody. And final simple disclaimer, this video is general education only. I'm not your lawyer, and gun laws can change fast based on your state, your facts, and new court rulings. Always verify current law, where you live, and where you travel before you carry.